he lost my business, right? And maybe then he goes, oh, next time he does answer that call on 9 o'clock on a Friday night. So I think you can learn it, and I think that people care. People who care just care.
Well, thank you.
And I'm not saying Shane does that, by the way. I don't know.
You have that high performing mindset, even when you're sleep deprived, even when you're exhausted. Like, what is it that you do, or do you have rituals or something that keeps you going? Because I know for me as a firefighter, I was just like, I have to do this. Like, this is my duty. I don't know what it is for you, though, because obviously it's different. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And today we have an exciting guest with us. We have my good friend, Mike, who is a broker at Apollo Jets. And today we're going to do everything that we can to help you understand the very interesting, very intricate, and I'd call it a crazy lifestyle of the people who are able to, well, live this way. Mike, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk about what I do here with you guys today.
Awesome. Well, Shane has been beaming ever since we got Mike on the call. We started like almost 20 minutes late because we were just talking all about him and life. Shane, I want you to start off today. I want you to lead this because I see the smile. I see the glow. Go for it, man.
I mean, we're talking to somebody who is freaking doing private charters and jets, for crying out loud, man. I mean, how exciting is this? How often do you get an opportunity to talk about this? But in the 1% lifestyle, all the freaking time, baby. Anyways, Mike, I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited.
My very first question is like, what's the best part about this? Like your job, like in general, what's the best part about this?
There's so many good parts about this, honestly, about my new career. I had been in another career prior to, and I like to compare a lot of the things that I'm able to do now that I wasn't able to do then. And it's truly, I think, being able to service a client is awesome. I came from an industry, in the insurance industry, where you were handcuffed by either the client, the carrier, or whatever the case may be, to certain hours. Right? Where if a client asked a question or needed something in writing from an insurance company, they have banker's hours, right? So if they ask you at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, you're probably not getting an answer till Monday. And our industry as a whole, from the ground up, any level, any vendor, any broker, anyone you're dealing with has the ability to get answers. And I'm not going to say right away, like in seconds, but within a few hours, right? Because people answer the phone at 2 a.m. in our industry, whether it's the vendor, whether it's me, whether it's the service team. They're always answering the phone. So I think that is awesome. I think the people I get to deal with is probably the coolest part, right? You're talking about the 1%. People that have the money to fly private truly are the 1%. So you get to see some of the most interesting and most successful people in their fields, right? Whether it's an insurance guy, whether it's a sanitation guy, whether it's an athlete, they are the top percent of their field, and that's why they have the means to fly, right? So I think that is also probably one of the coolest parts of this job, is just getting to understand how people's minds like that work.
Yeah. See, if this was me and I was in your shoes, like my whole wall would just be autographs of just like, this person, this was this person. Like, that's just so exciting. My follow-up question to that is, I'm sure people just don't know, like, generally, what's the cost difference to fly, private compared to like first class or regular?
It's significant, and, people don't always understand that. They assume because I'm going with 5 people, we're all flying first class, we might as well just spend a couple dollars more and get a whole plane. And it doesn't really work like that. I would say on average, you're looking, on a smaller plane that can fit 4 to 6 people comfortably. It's going to be, 6,000 to 7,000 an hour.
An hour. Okay.
Yeah. It's based off fuel costs, availability. So it's hard to really ballpark numbers. With the election coming up, I'm sure fuel will change no matter who wins. Prices will change. So, it's hard to ballpark a number right now, but it is not close, right? People tend to think, well, hey, I'm going here with X amount of people. We're all going to fly first class. It's going to be at this cost. No. especially going international. The cost to fly international is crazy. The flight time itself is expensive, number one. Number two, it's not as flexible as people think. Just because you're flying private doesn't mean you can decide that you're going to change it a day before or show up 5 hours late. It doesn't work like that when flying international. So as far as the pricing goes, it's not close. It's not like, okay, I've been flying coach, now I just upgraded to first class, and hey, I'm making $1 million a year, now I can charter. No, right? It's a really different ballpark. And again, there's different levels to it, right? You have the athlete that'll fly beginning and end of season to take family to and from their city in which they play in. Maybe they don't live there full time. You'll have the businessman or entrepreneur that will go 2 or 3 times a year with family because it's easier to travel with kids, right? And then you have the people that will never get on a commercial plane ever again, right? And they strictly charter and they fly private everywhere. So again, the cost is relative to how much you make, how much you want to spend, and what your lifestyle is, and what's more important to you: convenience, comfort, and time, or that $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 that a round trip can cost.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that brings me to my next question, because I'm sure you'll have a good one for this. What is the craziest or most expensive, most intensive thing that you've ever booked thus far as a broker? Like, how did that trip turn out?
I got two things. One, the most craziest request was someone asking to get a free plane from New York to Aspen for a bachelorette party based on social impressions. I'm like, listen, first of all, you post our company's name, it's going to the company website, which means someone else is probably getting the lead if they do get impressioned by your Instagram followers. Second, the cost for something like that, it's so significant that even if I did get 1 or 2 clients out of it, it would take 10, 15, 20, 30 trips to make up that money, probably closer to 30. Wow. Yeah, I mean, our margins are notoriously low in this industry. It's a very competitive market. You're always competing on price. We separate ourselves, and we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But the most crazy trip that I booked this year was California to Paris round trip. And it was around, I think, $360,000.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
For six people, at least give me the 6, not 2.
It could have fit probably 8 comfortably. Again, that's a long flight. And
right.
That's another thing that people don't understand. Just because a plane has 16 seats doesn't mean you want 16 people on that plane for 7,
right.
9, 10 hours, whatever it
right.
is. Right. And that's something that we also take into account. The answer is yes, you could have probably fit 10 to 14 people on that plane. You need 2 or 3 pilots, depending on how far you're going. That one, I believe, needed 3 due to what we call duty day. The pilots need to be able to rest technically, right? And have another pilot come fly. So yeah, I think that flight had 6 people on it. It's not like you're splitting, first class ticket, which I think to Paris, I mean, I can tell you to London, I think it's like, 7 to 10 grand round trip.
Right.
It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 6 to 10 times more than that.
Yeah,
based on what you're eating and on shit. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is really interesting too. And Mike, can you expand upon? There's so many intricacies. One of the most fascinating things when I first started talking to you and getting to know you was all the different things you have to do just to make sure that a flight is good to go. Like I don't want to disclose it. Let you talk about your industry.
I won't get too much into our company's secret sauce, but the bottom line is our service is above and beyond. It's because of how detailed we get. And I would say charter brokers as a whole, whether it's us or another company, do have to handle more than the other private jet companies out there that do programs or cards or hours. And that's typically because once a person sells a program, hours, or cards, depending on which company you work for, that's their job. They're done. They pass it off to a client service team. When you deal with the broker, whether it's at Apollo Jets or another company, the broker is the client service team. right? Some of us have help, some of us don't, depends. But we are responsible for handling A to Z, itineraries, ground transportation, catering. And the way we handle that is, in my opinion, and clients that have flown with other people and now fly with me, very, very different, and in their words, better.
I'm curious more about that catering aspect. Do you cater it like to the person, or is it just like?
So every plane has standard stock depending on where the plane comes from, and from beverages to snacks, and then clients have specific requests, and we can do that many different ways. If there's flight attendants or the passengers okay with picking it up from the lobby, we can Uber Eats delivery to the airport, or we call it an FBO. Catering companies, right? The markup is a lot, but it's convenient, so people do it. It's a pass through for us. We don't charge for catering. Whatever we pay, you pay. So that's kind of how it goes, and it depends. Some people want Chick-fil-A on Sunday and they forget that it's closed. So, it's not possible to get things like that done. And then again, some people want steaks on a plane.
Right.
I don't believe they microwave well, but it's part of the experience, and we do whatever it takes to make the client happy, and we order them whatever they want to order.
Yeah, you're
There's like really not much we can't get in the continental U.S., put it that way, as far as food goes.
Yeah, you're like one of the highest touch, right? From the way it sounds, is that having to be in the private charter industry, you become one of the highest touch concierge services in the world, because you're dealing with such interesting people with such specific requests and specific tastes that you have to figure out now how to coordinate between, what would you say, maybe like 10, 15, 20 different vendors or companies sometimes? Because it sounds pretty intensive.
I would say at most it's probably like 7.
That's not
right. Bad. And that's like at the highest level, right? Once a trip is booked, you're dealing with the company that you booked the plane through, or the person that owns the plane. You're dealing with the catering company, the ground transportation company, the client. So that's 4 or 5 people right there. And then, sometimes you throw in the hotel. If they're staying at a certain hotel and they have, concierges that can help arrange certain aspects, of the travel on the client's behalf, whether it's, picking them up at the airport or, making sure the room is ready or things of that nature. But it's a lot of communication that goes in between, because, I got to double, triple, quadruple check things, because some people, it's human error, right? Things get missed. So we make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I love that. Shane, you look like you got a question. Go for it.
Well, I'm just generally curious. One, how many planes do you guys have? How many locations do you guys have? If I'm in LA right now, like, would I be able to go to the LAX and be like, okay, I'm here right now and get in? And
no.
Kind of a 2-parter here is like, how many trips do you guys book on a yearly basis on average?
The trips on a yearly basis, I do not know off the top of my head. I know it's substantial. As far as where we are based, we have people all over the country, right? As far as salespeople go, we have offices in New York, Florida, I think Boston, Scottsdale. I just, knowing some brokers that are in those areas. So I know that's where they are. I don't know how big the office is, but I know there are people in those locations. And then as far as planes go, we are a subsidiary of one of the top 3 largest aviation companies in the world. And they have, I would say, 300 to 350 planes on their fleet.
It's awesome.
One of the companies that we are partnered with also has another 41 or 50, something like that, give or take, right? 40 to 50 planes on that fleet as well. And then we have our trusted partners in the open marketplace that we use, and that can range. I think we probably do. I think it's like 6,000 in the open market that we have access to.
So it's like essentially Uber for planes. Like if I owned a private plane, a 6, 8, 16, however many the seats go to, I can have you guys use it and I make a commission. Is that kind of how it works? Or
yeah. Now I don't know how many people make money off of having one plane that offsets cost, right? It's just like owning anything, a house, a boat, a car. There's a carry cost associated with it, and it helps to offset it. I don't know how profitable it is when it's one plane. If you have many, it's a different situation. Right? Because you got to look at it this way: a plane flies from New York to Florida, chartered, right? That plane will then sit there until someone needs to take it from Florida and go someplace else, or whoever owns that plane will pay to fly it back empty to get back to where they had it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
There's one thing I'm curious about too, because one of the things that I think you and I connected on was that I used to be a firefighter. And though you weren't a firefighter, you live a very similar lifestyle where you don't sleep much. You're always on, even on those days where like you've had a restless night, you still got to get up and get going. And I know that most people aren't, or maybe they don't believe they're capable of doing that. And so my question for you is, what is something that helps you mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever the case might be, that really helps you have that high performing mindset, even when you're sleep deprived, even when you're exhausted? Like, what is it that you do, or do you have rituals or something that keeps you going? Because I know for me as a firefighter, I was just like, I have to do this. Like, this is my duty. I don't know what it is for you though, because obviously it's different.
I would say it's, A, you have to, right? But B, it's the reactions you get from the clients when they're like, it's 3 a.m. What are you doing awake? I had a travel agent book a flight with me for inter-Europe. I think it was Italy to Italy, 2 parts of Italy. And he knew I was awake the entire time watching every aspect of the trip. And he was like, dude, go get some sleep. Like, I have it. I'm like, no. Like, this is my job. You pay me to do this. You pay me so that you don't have to do this for your client. Right. So that way you have every update you need. And it's the, client running into someone in our company going, wow, I was like really impressed. He was awake at X, Y, and Z time because I was on the West Coast and he was in, Greece or whatever. And, no, you shouldn't be impressed. That's what I consider to be table stakes. Right. But it's that level of appreciation from clients that makes me want to do it, because again, I was in an industry for so long that was a thankless job. Insurance was a necessity. You need it. No one ever thanks you for getting their car insurance done. No one ever thanks you for, maybe in life insurance, it was a little bit different. Someone had a kid and and they got married, and thank you so much, because you're protecting their family. But people don't care as much about their things as they do about their time and their family. So making sure their family gets from A to Z safely, making sure that, their plane is on time and the kid's not crying in the airport causing a scene, like that stuff goes a long way. And, I think it's that appreciation. And then it's also just, I've always had a little bit of something where it's like, you kind of get off knowing that no one else is doing it type thing. Right. That like no one else is getting 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep and performing. Now people in my industry, they do it. Right. But I look at other industries and they don't. Right. They don't have to though. And so it's a little bit different. They don't have to. Like a real estate agent isn't showing an apartment at 3 a.m. They're just not. Right. It's not part of their job description. I don't care how hard that real estate agent works. Chances are that's not coming up often, if ever. Right. But flights do, because there's different time zones. And, it's part of I feel cool because no one else is doing this, right? You're doing uncomfortable things. You're doing things that people don't want to do, won't do. The client satisfaction, right, is huge. It's such a rewarding feeling when they appreciate it. And again, like you said, man, you have to do it.
Yeah. I feel like that's the type of mindset, though, that very little people that Vin and I talk to, clients, customers, general people, don't do. They don't go above and beyond. Like, I personally feel that if you were a realtor and I wanted to go look at a house at 3 a.m, you'd be like, let's go, dude. Like, I'm 10 minutes away. Like,
Mike would show up with coffee. He'd be like, I assumed you're tired. Here's coffee.
Right. I've had 3. So if you want one, I got you. Right. I also like to say, like, we don't really sell a product, right? My business is very different. We sell a service. You spend $60,000 on a flight. That's it. It's money's gone. You have nothing to show for it. It's not like you bought a watch. You didn't buy a car. The watch doesn't sit on your wrist. The car is in your driveway. it is a service, right? So it has to be exceptional because you're paying a lot of money for it, and you shouldn't be disappointed with the level of service.
That's such a great point, man, because I think honestly that should be applied to every industry. Because even when people are selling a product, what if you make your product go above and beyond for the cost of it? And I think in today's world, we are very concerned with how do we get the biggest margins, the greatest ROI for whatever we're doing. And then when we even get that, all of a sudden we stop delivering to some capacity. Like I think that's one of the things you and I talked about in our first phone call was, even for me, the way I show up as a coach is like, I want to give the absolute best service. I think that there's something to be said that there's a lot of shitty coaches, a lot of crappy therapists, all these people out there. But what if you could go above and beyond and support people in what they need as opposed to what you love? So I think this is something that, would you say it's something you're just born with, or do you think it was something you were taught? Like, how can more people develop this kind of mindset to go above and beyond in their industries?
I think it's a little bit of both nature and nurture, right? I think people that care about anything care about everything, right? It's that old saying, like, do one thing the way you do everything, or whatever that saying is.
How you do one thing's how you do everything?
They do everything. Yeah. If you don't care about anything, you don't care about anything. If you care about a few things, chances are you care about more, right? So I think that's part of it. I think that you can learn it for sure. I would say I learned it from my father, who was very, very service oriented, to the point where he does not sleep, right? That phone rings at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning. No matter how many times he's been woken up, he answers the phone, right? And then growing up, I used to tell people, if it was 3 in the morning and I was out, whether it was in college or whatever, and he didn't answer the phone, that was cause for concern, because he truly does answer the phone, right? So I think, I was kind of just instilled that. I think everyone in our company is of the similar mindset. Everyone here cares about their clients. Everyone here cares about what they do. I think working in any business that is sales oriented, if you don't care, you don't get the results that you need to survive or provide for your family. Right. It's a dog eat dog world. And, if you're not working hard for your clients, they don't come back. Right. And I think, you can learn by that, having bad experiences where you didn't care, and all of a sudden, you lose a client, whether it's in this business, that it's insurance, whether it's, you're coaching, right. Or, maybe Shane, his VAs are not doing what they're supposed to do. And the clients reach out to Shane, and he's just, you know what? It's 9 o'clock on a Friday. I'm out to dinner with my wife. I don't want to do this, blah, 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 whatever. Then next week comes around and that VA's done, and Shane's trying to call him. The guy, he's like, I don't want to deal with it. He didn't answer my phone call on Friday. He lost my business, right? And maybe then he goes, oh, next time he does answer that call on 9 o'clock on a Friday night. So I think you can learn it. And I think that people care. People who care just care.
Well, thank you.
And I'm not saying Shane does that, by the way. I don't know.
Shane was about to give a rebuttal. He's like, thanks for that.
Just relative, examples, because you guys are all here and I can, relate it to what you guys do.
Sure. Yeah. It's great to meet you, Michael.
Mike has 0 VAs.
Clients, if you're listening, I'm answering the call, or I'm calling you right back. But it's funny. I definitely agree with, the mindset. Vin and I had another podcast where we were talking about, if you're born with it, like it's a sales gene, because of how bad salespeople are. And it's curious if it actually can be taught, but I honestly think work ethic is work ethic and mindset is mindset. Although my wife would truly say that, how do you try and give 100% at your job, but yet you can't do the dishes 100% and they just stay there for 2 days? I'm like, that's something I don't want to do. So I will say there's give and take. Wife, I know you're watching this one, so no,
I think there is something to be said about that as well. And I think, again, if you love what you do, you care about what you do. But at the same time, if you give everything you have to what you do, there's only so much energy in a body that you can give, right? And you have to pick and choose and prioritize what's important to you. And I think,
right. Here comes a fight. My wife already just knows it's coming. That's what I say.
So I don't prioritize social. You're right. Like I prioritize my family. I prioritize my work. I prioritize my clients, and I prioritize my health. Right. There's, again, when I can sleep, I choose to sleep. If it's like going out with friends on a Friday or Saturday, if I have the opportunity to catch a couple extra hours of sleep or just relax and decompress, depending on my week I have, I'm going to choose to do that more so than not. And if you have the right friends in your life, they understand and they're happy for you working the way that you're working, right? And they want to see you succeed. They want to see you win. They don't get upset if they don't see you for a month or two at a time. They don't get upset if you don't call them for a week or two, right? That they're always there because they appreciate what you prioritize in your life, whether it's significant other, family, or, work, or again, your health.
I think that's why it's so important to be able to become friends or friendly with clients or business partners or business associates, because they get the lifestyle, and to some degree you're forced to see them. Like the coolest thing about doing this podcast with Shane is that I know every week him and I are going to hang out, and typically, this is what always happens. And Mike, you experience it, is before we shoot the podcast, we wind up bullshitting for a half hour before we even get to doing what we're supposed to do. It's like, all right, we're supposed to start at 12:30. Now it's 1:10. Like, let's roll this thing.
Every week.
Yeah.
But
I've been blessed to work with people, my both careers. My old insurance career that I worked in for a while, I was at 2 of their weddings, 3 of them actually, was in one of them. Some of them are still some of my best friends on, one hand, 2 hands, whatever you want to call it. And there's friends of mine from college that work here at my new company that have been working here for a lot longer than I have. So I get to also learn from the people that I like to hang out with, which is great.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, I wanted to hold up a little sign that's saying one of us. Michael, you're definitely one of us. This whole podcast that we've been doing for over a year now, we talk about how, we've gotten rid of friends who weren't essentially friends. They were acquaintances, or they did one thing with us as far as drinking or golfing, and then we had nothing else in common. And then, in our profession, work from home, entrepreneurs, it's so hard to find like-minded individuals. But when you do, it's like this bond, it's like this attachment. It's like you truly understand, because nobody else does. Like for you, all I want is nothing but success. And then I also want to, have sushi with you. I think that sounds great. More importantly, probably a steak, actually, medium rare with a little side glass of whiskey. But anyways, I think that's truly what it is for, colleagues and friendships. Is it's not a competition. It's not you're doing better in life. It's truly, we're on the same page. I wish you nothing but success. It's amazing. And it's truly hard to explain that type of mindset to regular people. Anyways, it was great hearing it. It was kind of like a nice refresher, because when Ben and I talk about it, it's one thing, but when you hear it from somebody else, it's just, it's amazing.
Yeah. Mike, we got like 2 or 3 more questions before we start wrapping up. And one of them is, what do you see for your future? Like, what do you want to achieve? What do you hope to achieve? Where do you think you could possibly go in this lifetime? Just tell the people what you're looking to do, so we know how to all support you in it.
I'd like to have a big, happy family, right? That's, I'm from I guess I would say a small family. My girlfriend is from a large one, so I'd like to have a large, healthy, happy family. That's always been important to me. I'd like to be lots of cousins. No, I don't want that many kids, but I want lots of cousins. I have 3 siblings, so hopefully they get married and have children, and then I have a bunch of nephews running around. I think that would be great, and maybe 2 to 3 kids for me, and they have 2 to 3 kids each, and now we have a big whole bunch of cousins running around. I think that would be awesome. I'm very close with my cousins. There are not a lot of them, but I'm close with them, right? So it would be cool if there was more that I was closer with, I should say. That, and obviously, monetary comes into play, and I think money does make things easier to some extent. Again, there's certain expenses I don't want my kids to have to grow up and worry about, that I would like to be able to take care of. So that's on a very basic level. And then, I'm into wellness, right? So I would like a house as a secondary home that can serve as a retreat, if you will. Gym, spa. I don't know where it's going to be yet. Vin is working with me on that. But it does need a, cold plunge, steam room, sauna. Not that I'm one of those guys that cold plunges every morning. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's going to change your life and it's going to open up the pathway to success. But I do enjoy it every once in a while. And I would like to have access to one of those, from after a long week or two of work to decompress for 2 or 3 days. That's part of it. And then, building a successful business that, I can leave to my children and teach them the way. Not that my father leaves me the business, but I got to come work with him when I was tired of my career in the insurance world. I had a, hey, Dad, this is, I know you offered me a few opportunities in the past, but is the door still open? And for him to be easily able to just say yes, I think, I took it for granted for a while because he did offer me a job and I was like, no, I'm good. But the fact that I could just say, hey, this is what I want to do, and I was able to come over very easily is something that I want to be able to provide for my children and have them have the opportunity to come work with me in the future if that's something they want to do.
Yeah, that's important, man. That's beautiful. When I put my daughter to bed every night or whenever I can, I try to do as much as possible because when you're busy, you miss a lot of days with your kid. And you'll see that one day when you got a kid. You'll look for the nighttime routine. And I like to sit there and do somewhat affirmations. Like I say, hey, do you know you're my best friend? And she goes, mm-hmm. And I say, do you know I love you very much? And then she says, yes. And one of the things that I always say to her is, we're going to build a business together and make a lot of money, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, damn right. Because I think that's something you should always aim to do as a man, especially if you're capable of it, is the best thing you could do is not leave your kids money, but leave them something that could generate them money. Or leave them wisdom. Like that's why I like to read because and that's why I like to edit my books. Like when I have these books that I read, I'll underline, I'll leave notes and things like that because I want my daughter to find that one day when she's reading these books. So I think it's super important to have that future mindset of like, how can I build something for my kid? How can I give them whatever could set them up for life? Because money doesn't last. And even the research shows that most people that inherit wealth are broke 1 to 2 generations after. Because they never had a sustainable way of doing it, right? So that's probably a part of why you want to do this too. Love it. Shane, what you got from? Anything else?
Well, I mean, as soon as you find that retreat, I would just like to go there because
he wants you to fly him there on private for views.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I made a new best friend. So I to be honest, Mike, I just wanted to appreciate and say thank you for coming on. Like I mentioned before, it's really refreshing seeing a like-minded individual like Vin and I. It was a pleasure having you. I hope we can do it again and change up the conversation to, health related, as I think, especially health when we get older, as I'm starting to realize, as I'm down 15 pounds, and you're down a lot of weight as well. I think health is the number one thing that we should focus on, because if you're healthy and mentally and physically, the rest will come to you, which is family, spirituality, religion, finances, business, success, friendship, whatever it may be. But your health is the most important thing. You have to stay healthy. Your body has to be active. You mentally have to be doing things. And if you're not, the rest is just going to wear you down.
I forgot what book it was in. It was probably Napoleon Hill or something along those lines, but it talks about everything you want in life is attainable, right? Just how long does it take? And the healthier you are, the longer you have to get it, right? Whether it's, financial and monetary, or it's spiritual, or, there's so many things that you can get just over time. But how long can you be healthy enough to work for it? Right. And I think there's a great book out there that talks about the last 10 to 15 years of someone's life. You can spend it in and out of a hospital, or you can spend it walking around on your own power. And it's not just about living longer, but living longer and healthier and being able to enjoy those last 10 to 15 years. So I think that's, above all else, health, happiness, and, family is up there for me. And I think a lot of people that are in my circle.
Would you say that is your version of a 1% life, or would you say anything is different? Like, what do you believe your 1% life to be? Is it everything you said, or is there something we missed?
I think 1% life for me is just knowing that I'm doing all that I can, right? There's obviously days where I don't. And, I think that's human. You can't be, not everyone can be David Goggins, right? Where they're just
Who's gonna carry the
150%.
boats?
Where you're 150% all the time. That takes a very unique person. And I think it's foolish to believe that everyone can be someone like that and you set up false expectations for yourself. But I think doing everything to the best of your ability and being there for the people that matter in your life, and whether it's clients, friends, family, just, and again, taking care of yourself, right? Being 100% healthy and doing what you can, right? And again, at the highest level that you can do it. There's days where you can perform better than others. There's days where you need sleep, right? If you're running on 3 hours of sleep, you can't do it every single day. Your body will burn down, right? It happens, and then you need a week or two to recover because you get sick, right? So I would just say the 1% life is just doing everything that you want to do to the best of your ability. And again, don't pretend that you want to do something. I think that's very important, right? And Vin and I discussed this, and don't tell yourself you're going to do something if you're not going to do it, because I don't want to give too much of Vin's secret sauce away, but
go for it. Give it all away.
It turns into you letting yourself down and it becoming easier and easier to continue to do. Andy Frisella talks about it when he talks about 75 hard. The more times you quit, the easier it becomes to quit the next time around, right? So, if you want to do something, do it, but don't do something because it's cool to do it or it's expected of you and things of that nature.
I love it, man. And the final question we have, and hopefully this is some of the questions the viewers have too, is where can people connect with you? How can they find you? How could they go about getting a jet? Because you did say, right, that if people go to the website, anybody could get it. How do we get you specifically so that we could book through you?
Text or email is definitely the best approach. I don't know if you guys want me to say my information on here.
Yeah. We'll put it in the show notes too, so people could have it if it's there, and it'll live forever on the internet.
Great. So if I get a bunch of prank phone calls and spam, I know who to blame. Text and email is definitely the best way to get a hold of me. I answer every text, every phone call, every email. I would say phone calls obviously the fastest, because no matter what I'm doing, I'm sitting here watching my phone. And if it rings, it rings, right? And I've been on calls with Vin I've been, hold on, mute, what's up?
Yeah.
I answer the phone calls first because they're the most easily recognizable. Text and emails as well.
Okay. Well, do you want to say it, or?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if we're just going to put it in the notes or
We'll do that, but maybe people aren't looking at the notes, Mike. You gotta get everywhere saturated.
Actually.
I don't think your crowd is not paying attention to the details. I would have to say that, your crowd is probably detail oriented, but my number is 516-661-3703. Again, that is 516-661-3703. And now you guys have me sounding like an infomercial. And my email is michael@ApolloJets, spelled APOLLO jets.com. Michael@ApolloJets.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining us here today. I know I appreciate you being in my life. I know Shane is excited to now have you in his. He's beaming. You probably already got a text saying, "Hi, it's Shane." But thanks so much for giving us your time today and sharing your perspective on the very interesting and very unique world of private jetting. As always, everybody who watched this, if you have questions for Mike, drop in the comments, get in touch with him. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, tell two friends, let them tell two friends, kind of like how Mike will have a big family one day. And thanks for being here, everybody.
I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you very much, guys.
Bye, guys.